This is Lundon Calling, show number 18 of the London Bridge Talk Show, where we bridge the generation gaps with three generational Gabby Gays. Bridging the generation gaps are your hosts, Sean Chandler, Donny Winter, and Ace Lundon. And as the elder at age 80, in that gap, I shall moderate the show with Sean at age 50 and Donny at age 20-something. Let's see how the generations think. You know, there's a big difference in thoughts, believe me. So welcome to the show, folks. Please fasten your seatbelts. No topic is taboo, and we warn you in advance that Sean has a potty mouth. Anyway, I think he does, but I'm not sure. But you've been warned in advance anyway. There's so much good in the worst of us, folks, and so much bad in the best of us. It is hard to tell which of us ought to reform the rest of us. Now, I say that on every show, basically because it's a method that is used in teaching people. And if you hear something and see something and say something over and over and over again, it eventually becomes a part of you. And there is so much good in the worst of us. You better believe that. And so much bad in the best of us, and I'm sure that's a truism. It is hard to tell which of us ought to reform the rest of us. So it means that our thinking might be changed a little bit. Oh, guys, you know, it's never easy to have conversations about difficult things. But it is the difficult things in life, I think, that we must talk about if we want the difficult things to end or change for the better. Back in, I think it was 81, we heard in whispers a difficult problem. People were afraid to even talk about it. A strange illness was seemingly attacking our young gay community then, killing them within days after they got into the hospital. Then we realized that we were seeing neighbors, our business acquaintances, dying. I began counting, but I had to stop at 33 deaths because even though friends kept on dying, I couldn't take it. It was an overwhelming time. I had to stop counting. And I asked, why only the gays? Why? And by the end of this 80s decade, my own husband died in my arms from this plague. Do we need to talk about it? Hell yes. So today, 36 years later, there are people now living with and not dying from it. I need to know about it, and you need to know about it, I think, too. Our guest today will be answering questions about what's been happening, because he speaks with many groups all over the country and has been on so many magazine covers, etc. And he's an actor whom I had the opportunity of being in a film he starred in. It's called The Best Day Ever. And damn it, folks, if you haven't gotten a hold of that film, you should do it, because it is a really good film. Best Day Ever. Unfortunately for him, I decided after I met him, I said, you know, I choose friends, lifelong friends. And after I met him, I said to myself, I want to be his lifelong friend. So he'll never be able to get rid of me, and I don't ever want to be able to get rid of him. We choose. So he stuck with me, and I'm stuck with him for the rest of our lives, and we're just two little happy Leos. I'm on the 1st, he's on the 3rd of next month. Oh my gosh. So happy early birthday, my friend. And folks, and now we'll find out who he is. His name is Mel England. Okay, Mel, welcome to the London Bridge.
Wow, thank you, Ace. You cracked me up. I love you. Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here. Hello, you guys. Hello, Sean and Donny. It's nice to to be talking to you. I've listened to the show before, but I haven't gotten to talk to you live. So here we are.
Hi, Mel. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Hey, Mel, it's nice to meet you.
Virtually, yes.
Of course.
Now, folks, they have to, Mel, first of all, you are living with AIDS. Is that what it's called these days?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think they changed the name of AIDS, right? But it is funny because people are living. I'm a long-term survivor. I first seroconverted, which means I became positive in 1989 when I was 19. And of course, at that time, as you know, well, Ace, they give you months to live. Yeah. So it's sort of a miracle that I made it out of the weeds. I made it through the next 10 years, basically. And I did eventually get very sick in 97 and almost died of full-blown AIDS. And then they had these new drugs that had just kind of come out, the protease inhibitor. So officially now I don't have AIDS because my T cells are way up. Like my doctor says that I have the T cells of a normal, healthy person now. So I'm incredibly fortunate. So literally, I don't qualify. It's weird. I don't have AIDS, but I'm an AIDS survivor. But I have HIV. So anyway, it's all kind of just throw all those letters in there with LGBTQ, and we'll have.
Now you said you have your HIV. What HIV is? How different from AIDS? What's the difference there? Anything?
Well, the HIV is the virus that causes AIDS, and so just like you can get a cold virus, or you can get the herpes virus, or you can get all sorts of viruses. It's the thing that causes it and mutates using your white blood cells. So effectively, and then AIDS is really just the complications that arise as a result of the HIV. So you have if the HIV replicates and makes a lot of HIV in your body, and then your T cells go down, then you can have a lot of opportunistic infections. When I got really sick, I was very lucky that I did not get pneumonia, which is usually the thing that takes people. And I had several friends that that unfortunately I lost, and usually it was around pneumonia. I somehow was very lucky and did not have pneumonia, but I did have Kaposi sarcoma. I had it, all over, like on my face and my arms and my chest and on my leg. And then I had some other issues, which are kind of not pleasant to talk about. Let's just say I had some issues.
now, Mel, when you looked in the mirror and you saw the Kaposi, what was going through your mind? Were you saying, "Oh my God, what's going on?"
You know what, Ace? I mean, it was also a very dark. It was I was in denial. I mean, I did not really get it. It wasn't until I actually was in the hospital that I started to even understand that I think I was emotionally protecting myself. And I just I don't even know. I remember I had one on my face and I used makeup, and I just thought it was some kind of like mole. I don't even remember. I was pretty far gone in my drug and alcohol addiction at that point. And so I was doing everything I could to sort of, try to emotionally escape or survive or whatever. It's very interesting because it took many years later in therapy and in recovery. I got, after I almost died, I ended up getting sober. And so I've now been sober for 18 and a half years. So that's about the same amount of time since I almost died of AIDS. And so basically, after I started getting better, that's when I started really, in a way, having my feelings about it, because I was so disconnected from what was happening to me.
Did you lose friends during that time too? Good friends.
Yeah. I mean, I lost several friends. I mean, I can count on, I have probably about 10 people that were close to me that died over the years, but it was, oddly, Ace, it was actually after some of them were, during the crisis, but even some of them were like in the around like 2008, 2006, 2005, when we all thought everything was better. I had one friend, and I won't say, I'll just call him Ronnie for the sake of his own, privacy. But my friend Ronnie had got HIV, and he went into total denial about it. And he actually was hooked up with these people that were into alternative medicine, and he was going to go. They didn't believe there was any such thing as AIDS, and he went to some clinic in Puerto Rico, and he ended up getting incredibly sick. And in the last week, he was in the hospital with full-blown pneumonia, and they were going to try to treat him at that point, but it was just too late, and they couldn't help him. And I talked to him a few days before he died on the phone. And I remember, it's just so interesting, because I went through a phase like that when I was early diagnosed. You didn't know what to think. I thought, I was smoking pot. I thought it was a conspiracy by the World Health Organization to kill all the gay people. And I had, let's face it, some pretty good reasons from the outside world to believe that something like that might, I didn't think like the police and the government were my friends. You know what I'm saying? We'd had such an experience as gay people in this country. I'd been personally beaten up by cops and put on trial for being gay when I was a teenager. And, we had so many, so I was very suspicious, and there was such a level of, I think, internalized homophobia. And so, the thing that happened to when I think about that time is that, you had all these men that were struggling with their sexuality as anyway, and we were struggling not only for acceptance in society, but acceptance with ourselves, just to feel like we, it took me years to understand that, God, I don't know what you believe. I think you're an atheist. I can't remember, but I believe in God, but my God is it's an interest, I believe in the universe and the stars and the sky. I call it God. And so to me, God makes people gay. I just think like gay people have always existed. So for me to take that and to really own it, after I had been raised in a society that sort of, instilled in me this concept that I was intrinsically evil, or that, the devil made me do it, or, all this kind of hocus pocusy stuff that was really a way to make me hate myself. Mm-hmm. And so when AIDS started happening, it kind of, for many, sadly, I think, for many of us, it became a confirmation of that which we already believed deeply internally about ourselves. That somehow we deserved it. And you had people in the outside world that were echoing that, the religious right, sort of this kind of weird, awful, thinking that was demonizing and sort of, almost, if not carefree, there was a weird kind of almost celebration of the fact that these gay guys were all dying. So it was an awful time. We survived. We had to watch all of this. But I think for me, what happened is I realized as I got to live that it was very important not only to claim my space on the planet and to claim my right to be divinely made gay by God, but also to literally tell that story. It's so that people remember and know that it's not like suddenly, and it's all on the backs of your generation, Ace. We're here today because of the fights that you fought, and I know you fought those battles, and there's not a week that goes by that I don't think about you and Patrick and what that must have been like for you to have to take care of him and nurse him until through his passing. We had to go through so much. So thank God all that's over. and what a great, what a great, what a great thing that we are getting to a time that we get to live in.
Yeah.
Last week, I just want to say this. Last week, I just happened to stop in front of Stonewall Inn at the moment, like literally my friend was like, "Are you coming?" And I was like, "Sure, whatever." And then they were like, we were suddenly there and they were having the dedication of the Stonewall National Monument. And so I was there in the moment. I got interviewed by the news and, whatever, but I could not believe that now we have a national monument for LGBT history, for the revolution, really.
Yeah,
So
we have come a long way, but still many ways more to go.
yeah.
By the way, Sean and Donny, jump in. The water's fine.
Oh, we will. Don't worry.
Yeah, we will. Don't worry.
I'm done. My monologue is done.
How close to death were you?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it, but I had 13 T cells, which is not a lot, and I was about 100 pounds. So I had lost about, I average about 160 now. So I was very thin, and I was incredibly weak. I had, it was very common. People, it's like the AIDS fatigue. So, but I think the scariest thing, Sean, was that I had lost the will to live. My mother had come to take care of me, and I mean, it's a complicated story, but she's the one who took me to the hospital. And, I just remember she was like, "I'm going to take you to the hospital." And I didn't even really want to go. I was literally sitting there thinking about I should just die. And I mean, not knowing that I could possibly die, but I just didn't even care enough to. And I think that that's really something happened when I got to the hospital and people started. I mean, it was just funny. There was a nurse there at St. Vincent's. His name was Bob, and Bob, the nurse, who to this day is just like an angel that was sent to me. And he would come into my room, and he was, I think, on the night shift. So I would see him at night, and he would ask me, "So, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm an actor," and whatever I was talking about. And then Bob said, "Oh, I sing in the gay men's choir, and I do this." And so one night as he was leaving, he turned around and he looked at me and he said, "You're going to perform again someday." And in that moment, he gave me like hope. And I think on some level, that's what I needed. I just needed the hope and the will to live. I don't think that the people who died didn't have that, but I think if you don't have that already, it's like if you've lost the will to live, you're then you might as well give up the ghost, as they say. But I came very close.
Yeah. Patrick did too. Yeah. Matter of fact, I came home from my work because I had to work, and he's there, and I says, "What happened?" Like I saw the pillow on the floor, and he says, "Would you put the pillow over my face?"
Oh.
And I said, "Patrick, what?" And he goes, "I don't want to be around here anymore. I tried, but the pillow fell off." And I said, "Well, Patrick, I can't do that because they'll know that I smothered you." And he says, "No, they won't." I said, "Yes, they will, because your lips will turn white or something like that. I don't know what it is, but you can tell when a person's been smothered, And I said, "Then you want me to go to jail?" No. I said, "Okay, then I can't do it. I cannot do it." So you get to places like that when you're really ill.
Yeah.
And then for those of us that are real sissies like me, man, I see my doctor when I got a fingernail problem. But these last 2 years for me have been hell because I've lived in pain. Now, pain, and there's pain with AIDS also, a lot of pain, and they fill you up on pills and such. But we want to learn more about all those pill things, because a lot has happened in the last, how many years since well, let's say since 80. A lot has happened in the medical field, and I'd like to know a little bit more about it, because we have people that here in Bullhead City that have and are living with AIDS, and it's a problem that we, as I said in the beginning, we have to talk about these heavy duty problems.
Well, Ace, I think it's so great that you're talking about it and that you want to talk about it, because one of the main things that people in the HIV AIDS community, at least here in New York, I was very lucky. I got plugged in. There was a huge building called GMHC, Gay Men's Health Crisis, that was just there to help me. And I got legal help and social help and all this help. And then out in LA, they have AIDS Project Los Angeles. And so I really feel for, all the men and women that are living with HIV AIDS out in other places that don't have those kinds of support networks, because, I think on some level, you can get the pills and you can have a doctor, kind of giving you that kind of treatment. But, also we need our community. And there's you kind of come into a community and, it's not even necessarily just the gay community. I mean, there's all sorts of people that live with AIDS, HIV. But there's a larger conversation that's been happening for like the last, probably 10 years about ending stigma around HIV, because really there's nothing to be ashamed of. And a lot of us still play into those old, stories and tapes that we have that tell us that we're supposed to be ashamed, or, that we did it or we deserve it or something,
It's an illness. You can't be stigmatized by an illness any more than you can with cancer and such. And no matter what they say about you, hey, you don't let any of that come into your thinking, folks.
Well, that's right. And so that's why it's good to talk about it, because by talking about it, we sort of help dispel the stigma. And so it's just a really big thing, I would say, to any of your listeners out there that either, are living with it, or know somebody that's living with it, or have family or friends. The best thing that we can do for our brothers and sisters that are dealing with the consequences of AIDS and HIV is to simply just let it be a normal thing like diabetes or anything else. Because now it's so treatable. And that's the thing too, is that, I'm getting to live my life. I mean, it was funny, after I got out of the hospital, at that point, those medications were very new, and that was in 97. And they told me at that point that maybe I had 5 years to live. And so on these new drugs. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll have 5 years. And then within a few years, that changed to 10 years. And then a few years later, suddenly they were telling me that I would live to be an old man. And so, for me to go from, when I was 19 being told I was going to have 6 months to live, to then it was going to be, any minute now, then it was going to be, 5 years, 10 years. And now it's like, okay, you can live a whole life. It's been quite a, am I allowed to say curse words on this show?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Oh, it's been quite a mind fuck, but the good news is that it is so treatable now. So anybody who is afraid of this, if anybody is at risk, if they feel like maybe they've been at risk, the best thing they can do today is to go get a test. And if they're positive, you can cry about it for a day, talk to your friends, be sad, and then get over it and go get your medicine and go on with your life, because you can have a complete full life. And for one example, I'm living proof of that. I've gone on, I went back I literally went back to acting class. I took a class. I started working off Broadway. I did some plays. I went out to LA. I've done some independent movies. And, so I'm getting to, now I'm married and we have 2 dogs.
That's an accomplishment, my dear.
Yes.
Hey, you said the pills. How difficult is it for someone, say in a small town or here or any place, to get the medication they need? Is it terribly costly for them, or do they have certain insurances that cover all of that?
Well, I'm not an expert on state by state, but what I can say is I believe most of the states in the U.S., I think we're very lucky in the U.S. I mean, if you don't have the money, you're going to go usually onto some kind of program that's sort of, hooked up with Medicaid or, the state, version of Medicaid. And they will pay for your AIDS drugs if you need them. So the most important thing is to get hooked into the system so that you can get that treatment. So there's no reason anybody should not be able to get the pills because of money. At least here in the U.S., we're very lucky. There are places where people don't have access to drugs, and that is just devastating to me every day. Because anytime I think about how lucky every time I take a pill, I'm so lucky that I have access to this.
How many do you have to take?
Well, I'm a little bit different because I'm sort of like, I'm from the dinosaur generation. So because of that, they've made it much simpler now. There are for the people that are for the I want to say the kids, but it's not just kids. It's for somebody who is becoming HIV positive today, or recently. They might be able to get onto 1 pill a day regimen. I mean, I can't even believe that. I take about 4 pills in the morning and 5 pills at night, but that's because of there's a recipe. That's why they call it the cocktail. But what they've done is they've now combined a lot of those drugs, and so a lot of the new people can get on one of those 1 a day pills. I can't get on the 1 a day pill because I genotyped. There's another word for you, genotype. I genotyped out of one of the medications that's in that pill, meaning that I developed resistance to it. So that was also a problem in the early stages with the protease inhibitors, is that if you weren't compliant, meaning that you forgot to take your pills, or you weren't, or if for some reason you just didn't respond to 1 pill, but because you were taking that pill and another pill and another pill, but because it wasn't working, you would develop resistance to all of them. So it's a weird kind of thing. So, fortunately today, for people that are seroconverting now, there's more options for them. So for most people, it can be very simple now, which is amazing. When I first seroconverted, I mean, it was very complicated. I had to take pills pill in the morning at breakfast, another pill at lunch, something mid-afternoon, and then another one at night. I mean, it was just, and they were all it didn't make any sense. You had to have one of those big, plastic things with all the pills. It was crazy. Anyway.
Okay, I know that Sean and Donny have things, so I'll let Sean, you want to take it, and then Donny, and let's find out what you're thinking.
Well, I kind of wanted to address the pills, the medication. It seems like the arc of the medication from when AIDS first began was there was no medication for it in the beginning, and then we started. The scientists came up with AZT, and then that worked into the protease inhibitors, which worked into what we call a cocktail. And then now we're arcing into PrEP. Am I expressing that correctly?
Well, yeah, in a way. I mean, that's like shorthand. Yes, I mean, I would say you are right. I mean, and they all kind of overlapped in a way. So, what happened was basically the government, the FDA, whoever, they approved AZT in the beginning, and that was actually one of the reasons, sadly, for many people died because the AZT was being given in too high of a dose, and it was very toxic. And so it was, and I fortunately somehow knew that. And because I just saw that I had friends that seroconverted and were dead in 6 months, and I did not want that. So I stayed away from the AZT because I was paranoid and smoking pot, and I thought it was a conspiracy. But really what I think it was just that everybody was doing their best, and this was the drug. Meanwhile, people were fighting. If you haven't seen Dallas Buyers Club, you should see it because it's the story of the people that fought to get the new drugs. But then they fought to get these other kind of experimental treatments out there. The protease inhibitors came in, and then they worked together with the AZT. What the doctors eventually found out was they just needed to lower the level of the AZT, the protease inhibitors. There's also another kind of drug I think it's called the non-nucleotide transcriptor. So it's so funny. One inhibits, I think, the HIV from entering into a new cell, so it sort of protects, the T cell, and the other one sort of makes stops the HIV from replicating. So it's like two different versions. Anyway, so then eventually with by the time I got well, that's when the PrEP. When I started getting well. Also at that same time. Well, it may have been several years later, but that's when the Truvada came out, which people refer to as PrEP. What's interesting about that is that, I've been taking that pill for years. I had no idea. Certainly before, but once it became something that they started recommending for people that were HIV negative, it's sort of that in a way is a game changer. It's also created a lot of controversy in the community, which I don't know if you guys know about.
Well, we've discussed it in particular affecting Donny's generation.
Right.
And how, Donny, your generation feels like, I don't know, you don't have the same mindset of AIDS and HIV as the people who went through it, like mine and Mel's generation, if I may put you in my generation.
Well, oddly, I age up because even though I think I'm a little bit younger than you, but because when I seroconverted, a lot of my peers became men that were about 10 to 15 years older than me. So I actually identify more with guys now that are about 55 to 60. It's funny. So it aged me, but go on. Anyway, sorry.
That's okay. You're still pretty. Anyway.
I'll take it.
Donny, don't you think that PrEP has given your generation like a sense of confidence that may be a little too false, a little too early?
I think the fact that my generation really hasn't dealt with the breadth and the kind of scare of the HIV/AIDS crisis is kind of responsible for our confidence as well. I know, I've had a few scares in my time, but I've gotten tested, and of course everything has been okay. But I know that a lot of gay people in my generation, when I try to provoke some form of conversation about HIV or AIDS, I've either received responses like, "Oh, what do you mean? What are you talking about?" Or they have had very little to no information about it. And I think that has a lot to do with, lack of conversation. I feel like we've grown so confident in the progression of treatments that there is not as much conversation as there should be in my generation.
Right. Well, I certainly, and I think that's part of the reason why, when I became aware of it, there was a big controversy actually in Los Angeles about a year ago was Los Angeles and San Francisco, and I can't remember who was against it and who was for it, but it had something to do with AHF or Out of the Closet or one of those anyway. But one of the founders was against PrEP, and then the rest of the community was like, "Are you crazy? This is helping people stay negative. What are you talking about?" I initially, when I really started hearing about it and thinking about it, I was sort of against it from the perspective of like, that's crazy because people are going to be risky. But then I had a friend who had a scare, and then he did the thing where they call it the morning after pill. And so, he ended up not being, positive. And so then I thought it changed my thinking about it. My concern for you guys is not even so much about HIV because, I got to say, there's a part of me that's really envious. I didn't get to have my 20s and feel confident and fun. And my 20s were a nightmare. So I'm like, wow, I'm really kind of, envious that these kids are getting to have sex and and feel like they're not having to worry about it. But there's all these other things you can get by being unsafe if you don't know where your partner's been. So you can get, like a couple of years ago, there was this really scary meningitis going around, at least. I know it was in Los Angeles and New York. Yeah. Then there was something else, the MRSA, remember the staph infection, all this stuff. So, the problem is that because so often, young people, and look, I think sex is great. I think people should be having sex all the time. I think it's wonderful. But because of the fact that people, often, especially in the gay community, can sometimes be, anonymous or in situations where people don't even really, or maybe they've been drinking, people can just not be safe. So I think it's important that we talk about this. I don't know. Do I wish that, people didn't have to use condoms? Sure. But I can't for the life of me, unless I know where my partner has been, and know that they are clean and know that they don't, do you know what I'm saying? Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Donny, I got to ask you this. In your generational bridge there, do you know any in your age bracket that have AIDS?
I do not know anyone who has AIDS, but I do know a couple people who have HIV.
Okay. And what's the difference between those two now? Let's tell our audience so that they know, because I don't know what you're talking about. What's the difference?
Well, the difference with HIV and AIDS is that a person with HIV can be pretty normally healthy, but if their T cells go below 200, they may have even lowered it again, but it used to be 200. If your T cells go below the 200 mark, then you're considered as having AIDS. So it's really kind of dependent on where you fall on the scale.
Okay, that makes, that helps us understand this whole thing. Yes. Okay.
So your friends with HIV, Donny, are they getting treatment? Are they?
I am actually not sure. I have not asked them those questions because I think it's been a recent occurrence and I don't want to seem invasive with questions.
Right. Well, I just, as somebody who's lived with it and, and I know that Ace and Sean, you guys have certainly lived with it as well. I think in a way, I feel like it's harder to be a witness than it is to actually be, in the car crash. Yeah. But I just want to say that it's really a great opportunity to be supportive of those people however you can. And sometimes, that might mean not having some lengthy conversation like this, but, just, again, it's about stigma and dispelling stigma because people really internalize it. I internalized it. I can't even tell you it's just, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's different now. Maybe the kids, don't feel quite so bad. But man, back in the day, it was scary. So I don't know. I think it's changed, but on some levels, the most complicated part for me, it came around once I realized at least I wasn't dying today or this week. It was usually around dating and relationships because it got very complicated and. The gay community actually, honestly, was incredibly supportive back in the day. And now it's less of an issue for me because I'm married, so I don't have to. It's not like I'm, like dating like that. But, it can become very complicated for people about how do I date. I mean, I eventually realized that I would always make a rule. And I would always say, I only am going to date people that are HIV positive because it was just easier. And then inevitably I would end up falling in love with somebody who was negative. And so it's always complicated and hard.
I tell you, I did something today and yesterday. I wanted to contact my friends that I knew were in the middle age group with Sean and you. I wanted to contact them to find out if what their thoughts were. Most of them were gay, but there were some straight men also in that age bracket. And I wanted to find out what they thought about this so-called new drug that people can take, which will prevent them from getting the virus. And is that what you've been talking about? And what is? Because I tell you, I found out that all of them, both the straight and the gay friends, they are very aware of that drug, and some of them have already started taking it. I don't know how they started taking it, but their doctors evidently gave the prescription, and they are taking that drug, even though they all date and such. Is that? Tell us a little bit more about that crazy drug.
Well, that's the drug that we were talking about, which we called
PrEP.
PrEP, yeah, because and so yeah, it does now. Now there has been a study recently. There was a case of somebody who was on PrEP that actually did end up getting HIV. So I haven't followed the details, so I'm not an expert. And anybody who has any questions should really talk to a health to somebody who call your local AIDS hotline or HIV counseling hotline. But I do know that there was a case recently where somebody did get it. So I'm not sure that it's 100%, but it seems to be pretty effective. And that's why there was controversy about it, Ace, because some people were like, well, this is a good thing, but then it's also emboldening people to have unsafe sex because they feel like they're not going to get it.
Well, I tell you, nothing is 100%, Mel.
Yeah.
That's the most ridiculous idea in the world. So you just have to accept that.
Well, I've got some facts here, and this is off of AIDS.org. Now, oddly enough, a lot of this is really not updated, and I was going to ask why it's so behind off of a website which appears to be, dealing with AIDS and HIV, and it's the same with the CDC.gov website. But we're definitely not completely in the clear, so people have to be smart. In 2013, an estimated 47,352 people were diagnosed with HIV in the United States. In that same year, an estimated 26,688 people were diagnosed with AIDS. Overall, an estimated 1,194,039 people in the United States have been diagnosed with AIDS. Regarding deaths, an estimated 13,712 people with an AIDS diagnosis died in 2012, and approximately 658,507 people in the United States with an AIDS diagnosis have died overall. Now, the deaths of persons with an AIDS diagnosis can be due to any cause. That is, the death may or not be related to AIDS. That's the caveat off of the AIDS.org website. Now, again, this is information that's from 2012. I'm wondering there's an observation of we're definitely not in the clear, and there's also a question of why is this information off of AIDS.org not updated?
Yeah, well, I think, it's funny. I know that website, and I think part of the reason is because that website was something that I don't know the group that runs it, but I do know that website was very useful and had lots of information about 10 or 15 years ago. Because I would go to that website and I would look at things, and it's almost become inutile because of all these other things. And so it may just be that they lost. I don't know. I mean, who knows what organizational weirdness happened, but I looked it up as well, and I found that this study, there was a study last year that said that basically 100% of the people that went on PrEP were protected or did not get HIV, even in spite of whatever their sexual activity was. And then this year, in February, there was a case from Toronto where the person contracted HIV in spite of being on PrEP. So they're now saying, well, it's not 100%, like you said, Ace. So anyway.
Well, so,
well, I think before we move forward, we should take a minute break and do our advertisements really quick.
Yes.
So, let's give a big thank you to our sponsors. First off, we'd like to thank an awesome company run by our brilliant engineer, miraculous Mike Means, and his lovely wife, our girl Juanita, for great stage and theatrical design, as well as jewelry design, and they also do audio and video editing. Please visit their website at eclectic-resources.net.
Wow.
Next and equally is fabulous. Let's thank our friends at Diversity Rules Magazine, which is a wonderful LGBT-focused online magazine that can be found at diversityrulesmagazine.com, which is now available as an app on the smartphone. And we are thrilled to now be featured on Next Big Thing Radio, a terrific podcasting website featuring funny and innovative shows from fellow podcasters. Feel free to visit that website at nextbigthingradio.net, and they also have an app for the smartphone. If you like to learn more about our delightful Ace Lundon, the patriarch of our show, you can visit his blog at Scattered Thoughts from a Scrambled Brain, where he waxes funny and philosophic thoughts on a wide range of topics, and you can find that at acelundon.wordpress.com. If you like watching YouTube videos and you are into watching videos centered around LGBTQ activism on YouTube, feel free to visit my channel at youtube.com/user/Donny Winter. I do a variety of different things. To learn more about Sean Chandler, visit his writer's website at seanwchandler.com or follow him on Twitter at SeanAtTheFlash. And of course, feel free to visit the new Lundon Calling London Bridge website for our posted shows and updates. Lundon-calling.com, and naturally make sure that you like us on Facebook as well, facebook.com/LondonBridge, and we are currently working on getting us on Twitter as well. All right, back at you guys.
Thank you. And Sean, do you have anything regarding At the Flash?
Yes, thank you very much, Ace. Mine and my husband's show, At the Flash, will be running out here in New York City at the Fringe Festival this year.
Oh.
And they will be running the last 2 weeks of August, along with 200 other great shows, a lot of them LGBT focused and many other topics. You can always go ahead and hook up to the At the Flash Facebook page by finding me. I'm Sean Chandler, and you can just look me up, and there I am. And you can connect to the At the Flash page. Also, if you are in the Vermont area, we will be doing a one-night performance of it on July 23rd. The show's dates and times at the Fringe Festival will be released soon. We're just waiting for full confirmation on that. So we're super excited, and please buy tickets and go.
Wow, Sean, that's so great. I was in the very first Fringe Festival here in New York City.
Wow. And now it's okay. I'm not trying to make you feel old, but this is the we were in the 20th anniversary festival. So that's great.
I was in the, and it's funny because it was sort of a ragtag group of different theater companies, mainly on the Lower East Side. And Elena Holy was the founder. I think she's still running the festival, but
she is.
We won that year Best Acting Ensemble, which is a really great thing for our little play. And it's become such a huge New York City tradition. So it's just fabulous. So anyway, I'm so excited. If I can come, that's going to be in August, right?
Right. Yes. It will be in August.
If I'm in town, I'm going to come see you.
Well, we're spread out over the 2 weeks that the festival is occurring. So there's a range of dates. Since we live here, we're available for a more loose schedule. But yes, we're very excited, and Alina Holy does still run it, and apparently it's come a long way as far as how it's managed too. There are 3 different websites that we consult every day just to make sure.
Even the first year, they had it totally. I mean, it was insanely well organized for something that was the first. And then I came back, I think, in the 5th Fringe Festival. I did my solo show. Anyway, so I'm so excited that you're doing that. And so, anyways, I'll look forward to more news on that.
Is there something going on in London also?
For At the Flash?
Yeah.
No, I wish. No, are you kidding? David would be over the moon for that. No, the only other thing I'm doing is a reading the last week of August of my new musical, running a political musical, and that's going to be going on in Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. Okay.
Yeah, that's just a concert reading. That's all.
Okay. So, okay. Do you think that people like me, whose husband died in his arms from AIDS, and prior to dying, somebody said, "Did you have sexual encounters?" And the answer is yes, we did. And yet, he died, and I'm still alive. And I wonder how rough it is for others like me to live with the so-called guilt factor. How come I didn't die? That feeling. You run into that in any of your bridges.
Well, I know I certainly do, Ace. I mean, survivor's guilt is probably 90%. It's so funny being the person who survived. I can only, and I know that that's what you went through, but having it and then constantly watching all these other people die, but I didn't die. I mean, so there was a weird kind of thing that I would always say it would feel like, they would die, and then like the next day or the next week or I would suddenly be in some kind of like weird death ideation where I would literally feel like, well, they're dead, I want to be dead too. And I once I started to realize that, it kind of got me over the hump of realizing that was normal, and that I just needed to go through my grief. And I'll never forget one year I went out to Fire Island, which is the big gay beach in here in New York, and sort of the gay, one of the gay meccas, as it were. And so I went out to Fire Island, and I was on the ferry because you have to take the boat over to get to the island. And I was on the ferry with my friend Frank, and our friend Eric had been in the hospital, and he'd been really sick. And right as the ferry took off, Frank leaned over and he told me that Eric had passed away that morning. And I was devastated, and I went out to the beach that night, and I was literally just, crying and just throwing my fists into the sand, and I was just so upset. And then something came over me, and I realized that, Eric was dead, but I wasn't, and that I needed to go ahead and live for him. I needed to go ahead and it was this weird feeling. And I've always felt that way since, that like I am living for all of our friends. And, they didn't get to live, so I get to live. So I want to make the most of it, man.
I agree there. It is something like this, though. I mentioned about how it's difficult. It's difficult to converse about difficult things, but it's the difficult things in life that we must talk about. And this particular thing, this will make you really reassess your own personal philosophies in life. As you go through the whole guilt thing and everything, you'll change. Like how come he died and I didn't? Okay. Does that mean that there is a time set for death for each of us? Or, we can get into so many areas of thought, philosophical thought, about all of this. And by the way, Mel, as far as being an atheist, no, I'm not.
Oh, I thought you. Well, I don't know why I thought you were. So funny.
I'm just an old reporter that tries to straddle the middle of the road, and so no one really knows.
Well, I didn't used to call you the A word, Ace. I'm sorry.
Okay, I would be a very proud atheist if I were, but I'm not.
He's been called worse.
Yeah, that's for sure. By the way, this morning at my doctor's appointment, I ran into another asshole man. Those damn Muslims, we got to get rid of them. Ship them all out of the country. No more Muslims, and et cetera, et cetera. And then finally I said to him, I says, well, okay, so no more Muslims. What about the gay community? They all ought to be killed. This is what is going on in the minds of idiots out there. And if we as a gay community think we don't have an enemy, oh God, we've got a big enemy. And it's usually the church. But who knows?
Well, it's not all churches, but it's a lot. It's funny because I didn't really know this until I got to New York, and suddenly I was surrounded by, because I just came from Bible Belt, where it seemed like all the church people, just let me say, just we're not friendly to gay people. Let's put it that way. So I just didn't know what to think. But when I got to New York, it's like all of a sudden, all my gay friends would go to church. There's all these gay churches here.
I have a number of gay friends who have supposedly accepted Christ as their Savior now in a born-again experience.
Oh, really? Wow.
And so I'm saying to myself, I haven't said to them yet, because I know what they're going through. I've been there. They're going to have one hell of a time going through the Bible and trying to come up with whether or not it's actually a book of fiction or mythology or whatever. They've got to come to that conclusion at some point, because you being gay and being a so-called born-againer, the two just do not go together.
Well, I don't know about that, Ace. I think that I just think it depends on what brand. It's like sort of like, do you wear Calvin Klein or do you wear Donna Karan? There are certain kinds of evangelical churches that are accepting of gay people. So I think that there are hardcore, obviously Muslim faith that do not accept homosexuality, and there are actually Muslims here in the U.S. that are accepting of gay Muslims. So
possibly, their acceptance isn't acceptance. Possibly their acceptance is actually, we will tolerate.
Well,
I don't like to be tolerated.
Well, I could not agree with you more on that. I'll never forget, I had a friend that used to say, one day I used that word tolerate, and he was like, I hate that word. And I was like, why do you hate that word? And he said, because tolerate means that you're just going to grit your teeth and you're going to tolerate it. And I was like, oh, right. And he said, so I try to use the word acceptance. I'm like, oh, that's right. That's cool. I get it. Yeah. I'm going to try to be an acceptance, but I don't know. You gotta, whatever floats your boat. I mean, I'm all into. I've done all sorts of spirituality. I've been down so many paths. That's a whole other show.
And I think that is a truism for most people that have gone through the AIDS, HIV thing that like you have. I think that is a truism. You try this alley, that street, you try everything, and you just at least give it a try. And if it works and it helps you, then you hang on to it for a while.
Can I flip this around and ask you some questions, Ace?
Oh, sure.
I'm curious, when Patrick was getting sick and when he was dying, what how I mean, that was, what year was it? It was in the 80s, is that right?
Yeah, 87, 88, and 89.
Okay. So how was the family? Was his family there, not there? Were they
they didn't know.
Oh, they didn't know.
No, Patrick wouldn't let me tell them.
Oh. And did you tell them after he passed?
Yeah. I tell you, when Patrick says, because we were going to tell them at that Christmas, my daughter and her husband came up to Truckee, California, and Patrick told Mara, he says, well, you won't tell him. Mara says, I don't know your family, so don't worry, it's our secret. And that was all right with him. Then afterwards, in January, I said, don't you think we should tell Mom? And he says, that'd tear her to pieces. And I said, hey, she loves you. And he says, I know she does. But give it some time. Let me go on and give it some time. Let the family have a nice Christmas. Let them have a nice New Year and things like that. So that's kind of where it stood. And then I finally had to tell the family. And we had a memorial about a month after he died. I took the urn down to California, to Big Bear, California, with me, and had all the family there together at Mom's restaurant called The Beginning in Big Bear. And we had our own little memorial then, But we had a big memorial fundraising for the Nevada AIDS Foundation prior to that.
Oh,
I think it was prior, maybe not. That's a long time ago now. But and we had, we had the premiere of Mother, which is a tremendous film regarding AIDS. Mickey Dickoff, producer director, did it, and she brought up to the fundraiser, the memorial fundraiser. She brought John Dye from that movie. She brought Holly Bergen from the movie, and some wonderful people. And then Jeremy Dreyfuss came down from Idaho for the memorial, and Governor Bob Miller was there.
Wow.
And one of the leading professors at the University of Reno was there, and Bill Coors flew in, and so it was a good time. And then all of not all of Pat's family, because he comes from a family of 14 kids, his mother and all of his, I think all but one of his sisters were there, and such. So yeah, we had. Thank goodness for his family. They gave me so much strength. And I don't think I could have gotten along without Jeremy Dreyfuss.
Wow.
She was there for me and for Pat. She always said, if Pat were only straight, he'd have been my husband. So she had that crush on me. Anyway.
Well, that reminds me of one thing that I think is I don't know. I hate to sound like this, but whatever. But it's important that we, also in the conversation about AIDS, HIV, we can't forget that part of the reason that there is funding for things like the medication that comes through state agencies, through Medicare, and now through things like Obamacare or whatever. But it is because of the incredible amounts of work that people have done politically to make those things happen. And it's really important, especially, I would say to you, Donny, since you're the carrier of the torch for the next generation, to make sure that everybody understands how important it is that we vote and support candidates that are progressive, especially not only just on LGBT issues, but they need to be aggressive on AIDS, HIV funding, on education, on social programs. It's a big, big deal. That's one of the reasons why so many people like me are surviving and living long, wonderful lives, because we've been able to get support and resources. And there have been fights for funding that have been going on. I won't go into the details, but I'll just say we really need to support candidates. It doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat. It's funny. George Bush, number two, actually was signed one of the really great AIDS funding laws. So it may not be a Republican or Democrat thing. It's just that we have to always, keep the pressure on them to get results.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, we talk about voting a lot on London Bridge. And we say, my vote doesn't count. I'm only one person. But the votes do count in many ways that we aren't even aware of,
And you know what even counts even more is that if you actually are an active constituent, if you call your senator or your congressperson or your city council person, that means something to them. They actually, they record that stuff. So
they do. I didn't know that because I call them.
No, they do. Every time they get a phone call on an issue, because it becomes like the way they think about it. If somebody cares enough about something to actually call the office, that means that, okay, 1 out of 100 people actually made the phone call, but 100 people feel that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now that I know I'm being recorded, okay, there is no privacy anymore. What am I saying?
Beyond talking to the candidates or voting, I think it's important for people, especially in my generation, to realize that talking to other people, other voters about the issues is also important. So many people in my generation are always like, "Oh, I hate talking about politics. It's so dumb and annoying." But there are conversations that need to take place, and people are always listening. We may not realize it, but we influence those around us more than we realize it.
Are you afraid, Donny? Are you afraid of talking to people? You aren't, are you?
I'm not. You know me, Ace. Come on now.
I know we've talked about it. Sean mentioned at one show how easy it is for me to talk to people because I'm old. I can get by with talking about anything and everything to people because I'm old. And it's not as easy for a 50-year-old or a 25-year-old to talk about things as blatantly, boldly as I do. But I think correct.
That was within the context.
Okay, I'll bring to that.
Yeah, you were talking about how you were at a doctor's office dealing with another one of these people that you seem to be encountering a lot lately who was extremely bigoted. And you challenging him. I
attract them like flies.
I guess we attract what we must solve. But what I said was if myself or Donny were to put ourselves in that position, I don't know if we necessarily would have had the same outcome.
Oh, that's
it's very, very easy. It's easier if we're standing on the street on Santa Monica Boulevard and we're discussing AIDS and HIV with people who are walking up and down the street or on Christopher Street out here in New York City, which is what made me crazy about when people would be doing that kind of thing in those locations because it's like preaching to the choir. It's much different when you're going to, it's much different when you're going to Bullhead City, Arizona, and you're standing in front of the Safeway and you're saying, hey, can I talk to you for a few minutes about AIDS and HIV or gay marriage rights?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And it's much different when you were in a coffee shop in northern Michigan, surrounded by a lot of people who are very conservative and talking about these types of issues. And to kind of answer your question, Ace, that you posed earlier, it can be very difficult and intimidating talking about these issues at times, because frequently I get individuals in the older generations basically being like, oh, you're nothing but a lazy freeloading millennial who really doesn't know anything, and you're uneducated, and you're probably living in your parents' basement, blah, blah, blah. And then I discuss this issue with them, and then they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah, not everyone is that way that you think. People have so many preconceived notions about my generation, and of course it's the same with my generation. We have a lot of preconceived notions about your guys' generations as well.
Yeah, again, conversation, talking with people, so damn important for the world of activists.
Well, and I sort of reject I mean, I get it. I grew up in one of the most conservative places on earth, and my parents were hippies, and we were in the middle of Texas. I mean, it was like, it could not have been more, it was like a sitcom. But anyway, but I think that there is something so incredibly important about having conversations with people, even when they are uncomfortable. And I think there's a way you can do it without inciting them. Sometimes maybe it's like just by asking questions, like, well, have you ever thought about this, or have you ever thought about that? And then they can, because sometimes I've actually been able to get people to go, oh no, I haven't thought about that. And that's all you need to do. I don't need to prove them right or wrong. I just need to sort of shine a light into a corner that they haven't considered, and then just move on.
I do this automatically for years and years. If I'm going to get into a fisticuffs or a battle or whatever with anyone, I take it easy, make sure that I'm breathing correctly, and see that my mind is filled with love, so that I am not an antagonist to anyone. I am there because I love them, even if they're talking shit about me.
That's actually one of the things that Gandhi said. I went, and now this is really crazy, but I went on the peace march in Hollywood a few years back to protest the Iraq War with all the usual suspects in Hollywood, like Sally Kirkland, my friend, was there, and Daryl Hannah, and like the usual people that would march in the peace parade. But anyway, we were protesting the Iraq War, and the grandson of Gandhi was there. His name is Arun Gandhi. And afterwards, there was a press conference, and he gave a little speech, and he was talking about one of the things he learned from his grandfather, which is that you cannot fight war. You cannot be for peace and be fighting against war at the same time. Like you have to be for peace.
That's
You're not fighting war. You're for peace. And so that's exactly what you're talking about. Like you have to be coming from a place of, because if you're honestly, a lot of the times people want to get into fights, and then if you start fighting them, then they actually got what they wanted. Yeah. So it's sort of, that old thing that my grandmother used to say, which is, just don't let them get you riled up.
During the years that I produced and directed the Gene Lundon show for the military, and we were that was during Vietnam, and we were criticized from the right and from the left.
I bet.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, the right would say you should be doing shows with God in it. these men need God. I said, I just said, do I look like I have a clerical collar on or something? No. Well, I don't. We're doing shows. It's not. We're not there to evangelize the troops, And I had to fight those off. Then the left comes along and says, "You're supporting the war." I said, "Oh, sure. I support war. Are you got it out of your mind? Nobody supports war.
Right.
We are there to support the men." And they finally, the left never got over it. But
no.
And they still have their problems with that damn war.
Well, it's funny. I feel like in your lifetime, Ace, what's happened in the country is that it's, and I say your lifetime because I feel like I don't know exactly when you were born. I can't do the math right now, but I just know that, in the last, whatever it is, 70, in the last century, we've watched, it used to be, we didn't used to have red and blue states. We didn't used to have, everybody used to be mixed in together. So you would have conversations as part of civil discourse, debates were something that are fundamentally this American thing. We're going to have a debate. Now it's something that often we abdicate that responsibility and we give it to like the talking heads on television. And then because of social media and because of the fact that everybody's kind of moved into their own categories, like red states and blue states. What's happened is that we've gotten very comfortable with our own kind, and we've become very uncomfortable with the thing that is, I think, most American, which is to have a debate.
Yeah.
And so I am now looking for, I just was saying this to a friend of mine because I got very upset I've been very upset this whole election season because, I'm a Democrat, have been all my life. I won't get into all the details, but I will say I've been upset because of what was going on in what I saw in the Democratic Party. And I just saw a bunch of an inability to be able to have debates because the only thing we know how to do anymore is to villainize the other side. And then that's what we do with Republicans and Democrats. And that's what we do. And I don't think it's working. I don't think that this system that we've now got where everybody just throws shit at each other and just, it's like all this character assassination and all this, I don't think any of it is useful. I think we have to figure. So now I'm looking for people like you, Ace, who I love, that are on, the other side of the aisle that I can have a conversation with, and we can, because I know you're a lifelong Republican. Although I feel like you're going to be a Democrat any day now. But anyway.
Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath.
Anyway, so I'm just saying, but I'm looking for people that can have these conversations. We need to resurrect the ability to have debates and disagree with things, but still remain friends. I don't know how that got messed up, but it seems like we're in trouble if we can't do that.
Yeah, it's like I'm in Arizona where Senator John McCain is. Now, I have supported John in the past. And now, last time we talked, I can't support you anymore. You have gone so far to the right and so far to the extremes that you're no longer the type of a senator that I would want. And he said, what? Yes, times change and you change not for the better, but for the worse. So you have to be able to talk to these people. Well, John's younger than me, so I don't mind it anyway.
There you go.
Yeah, there I go.
I don't think I could be that diplomatic. I see what you're saying, Mel. I really do, but it would just be so difficult for me to be a peacemaker and or keeper and to have those debates and just to be that level-headed. I would just become
Do you know what it is, Sean? You know what happened to me is that I got involved in some politics, but not in like government politics. I got involved in politics in kind of in other organizations, but they're basically the same thing where it's run by parliamentary procedure and people vote and people disagree. And what I found out by doing this, like over the course of the last 15 years in different situations, is that ultimately, when you get involved in that way and you become a leader in that arena, you have to listen to everybody. And it's not fair if you only listen to people that you agree with. You have to really listen to the other people. And in the same respect, it's like it only works if the people who ultimately, are the voters per se, like respect the will of the majority. So it's the whole concept of our society is like, the minority has the right to be respected and protected, and that's the ideal of the Republican Party. And then the ideal is that the majority rules, and then we should. So it's this balance that we have to strike. And I would never have known that unless I had been suddenly, because I've always been sort of like the crazy one out on the fringe fighting. And it wasn't until suddenly I started to see what people have to do. Some of it has been like I've been in some of the politics in my union lately. And so I've been watching what's been going down. And I've been watching a lot of stuff I disagree with and I'm very upset about. But at the same time, I have so much compassion for the people that are at the center of the storm because they have to be like representative of everybody. And it's just really weird. Once you've been in that position, I think it changes the way you think about the way our society works. So I feel like we have to learn how to do that with each other. And it was something that back in the 70s even that people were doing, or it just seemed like it was normal, like that we, remember Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan would have drinks, like
Two good old Irishmen, yeah.
Was Ronald Reagan Irish?
I'm sure. Does Reagan sounds Irish?
Oh, now, Ace, I want to ask you about old Hollywood. So did you ever meet Ronald or Nancy Reagan?
I was commended by Ronald Reagan.
Commended?
Yeah,
oh.
on honor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because of your show for the military?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We were commended by so many terrific big shots, from presidents to vice presidents to senators to, and from both sides of the fence.
Wow.
Yeah. But I never met Mrs. Reagan, no.
Can I swing back and bring it back to AIDS and HIV, but in a way that is affected by show business? I was going to ask Donny, and by the way, Mel, in answer to your question, Ace has been a Shemendifer girl from way back. Donny, we've been talking at random about certain films and pieces of theater that we've seen that have been produced that have had an impact on AIDS and HIV. Do you recall your earliest memory of seeing something on TV or at the movies or in theater that affected you and your generation?
For me, I'd have to say that Rent affected my generation and myself the most.
Oh, okay.
We never, I don't recall any exposure in the media to HIV and AIDS until Rent, I believe.
The boys,
in my own memory, at least.
Boys in the band or whatever,
Well, the Boys in the Band didn't deal with AIDS and HIV. That was before.
That was homosexuality, yeah.
And that was groundbreaking in itself. But like, Mel, you were reminding me when you were talking about Fire Island.
Yeah.
Longtime Companion.
Yeah.
Which came out, I believe it was 1990.
Yeah, that was a big, important film. And it's so funny because I had the honor last year To me, I'm still like the most starstruck person in Hollywood. But I sat at the same table at like an Oscars. It wasn't the Oscars, but it's like an Oscars event kind of thing with Bruce Davison. Oh. And I just was literally in tears talking to him about that film and how important it was to me as somebody who literally had just been diagnosed at that. I mean, it was just like, and he was so emotionally moved. It was really powerful, actually. But that was an important film. Yeah.
Yeah, he has that gut-wrenching scene where he's just telling his lover to let go. His lover is just in the final stage.
Yeah, this whole idea of lovers leaving someone because they came down with the illness, that was so prevalent back in the early days.
No, this was Ace. This was him actually. I don't know if you've seen Longtime Companion. This is him actually telling his lover it's okay to let go and it's okay to die. And the audience was, at least where I saw it at Beverly Center, the audience was like sobbing.
I don't know that I could take that, because that's what happened with Patrick and me.
Yeah.
Pretty rough.
Oh, you never saw that movie, Ace?
No. The closest I've come to anything gay was a Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah. It's funny because I never saw Philadelphia, which was another film, if you don't know it, Donny, about it, that Tom Hanks was in, about a guy that had AIDS. But I never saw that movie because at the time it hit too close to home. And, it's funny that about a year ago when they did The Normal Heart Again on HBO, I had no interest in watching it, not because like I'm sure it was fabulous and wonderful, but it's sort of like, I did that.
Yeah. By the way, well, before the show is going, it's almost done, I think. My goodness. You mentioned unions with regard to AIDS and such. Years ago, when the Coors boycotts started in the early days, and I was with the Coast to Coast Times at that time, I wanted to find out where did this boycott come from? Why are the gays boycotting Coors? Was it only because Joseph and his lovely wife Holly was carrying a Bible around, or what? And so I started doing digging, and as it turned out, Morris Kite, who is one of the wonderful gay rights pioneers, and the thing in Hollywood is named after him now. I found out that Morris was a super duper union man, and they were telling him basically that the boycott of Coors would help Coors become a union member. They were trying to bully Coors into union, and we printed it. Of course, I caught hell for sure for doing it from gays, because they were so sure that Morris was correct. But we have to look into things and make sure we've got our facts all straight. How many more minutes? Okay, just minutes. Well, Mel, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you from our listeners' standpoint, too. I know that they're going to receive a lot of information that is so important for all of us to know. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Ace and Sean and Donny, and also to our engineer. I guess we don't get to hear from our engineer, Mike. Is that right? Does he not talk? Or?
No, we gag him. We have to gag him.
Okay. Well, I feel like there's a gag joke in there, but I'm just going to avoid that.
Okay. So thank you, and happy birthday coming up on the 3rd.
Yeah, we have to celebrate our birthday. I got to come out and visit you. I'm headed back to Los Angeles, and I got to come see you soon.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Yeah, okay. And all of our little gay community here loves you, by the way.
Oh my God, I love that. What's the name of that bar that I was at with you and where we went?
Jester's Sports Lounge.
Jester's Sports Lounge. Hey.
Yeah.
Amen. Woohoo.
Okay, folks. Remember, we need to let people have the opportunity to become either an angel or an asshole. And political correctness, this damn political correctness stuff, is an infringement upon the freedom of individuals to be who they are and all that they can or might be. But we need to get rid of the political correctness and let them be an angel or an asshole. Okay? I've said my little mission now. So, Sean, love you, even if you're over 50. Love you, Donny, even if you're over 25. And Mike, oh dear, take the gag out. Good night, Spider-Man.